Guys, my name is James, and this video I'll be showing you guys how to make a little rocket launcher slash grenade launcher in Unity. So I've gone ahead and imported the standard assets into my project, and so this little example scene. And I've also imported this rocket launcher. Subscribe because I'll be making a video on how I actually made this in Blender. But if you guys aren't the artsy type, I'll also have a download link in the description if you want to follow along. So the first thing I need to do is actually write a script to sort of launch our grenade. So I'm going to create C# script and call this launch grenade, and open that up in Visual Studio. So you guys' script is probably going to look a little different, but you guys are just going to have void start and update. Don't worry, I'm just delete this and that, and we won't need void disable or void on enable. You guys should also add the void set initial references. So we're gonna need a few variables. Our first one's gonna be a public game object, and we'll call this grenade prefab. So that's exactly what the title says. It's gonna be our grenade object. And then we also need a private transform my transform. There we go. And in our void set initial references, we're going to set my transform is equal to transform. So we could just type transform everyone instead of my transform. By doing this, it makes it just a tiny little bit more efficient. And then we have to run our set initial references in the start method. So set initial references, just like that. And now in our void update, we're gonna have to check if for player input. So we're gonna do if input dot get button down, and then in here we're gonna put in brackets and fire 1. So fire 1 is just your mouse 1 button, your left click, and then we're gonna add our brackets. So I'm gonna do spawn grenade. What am I doing? I'll do spawn grenade, and that's the method we're gonna have to set up down here. So we'll do void spawn grenade there and add our brackets. So to do this, we're first gonna have to start by instantiating our grenade in front of our rocket launcher. So we're gonna want to instantiate a copy of this, which I already have in my prefabs folder. I'm gonna want to instantiate it right in front. So to do that, we're gonna go back into Visual Studio, and we'll do instantiate. And then if we hover over instantiate, we can see the parameters we need. So we're going to need an object, a vector preposition, and a rotation. So our object, of course, is our grenade prefab. Our position is going to be my transform dot transform point. And then we're going to need some parameters. So it's going to be 0, 0, and then 2f. We'll try that. So this is our x, y, and z axis. Our z-axis is the line in this direction, and since we don't want it spawning directly on it, but right in front, we're gonna give it an offset of 2 right there. And then after that, we need a my transform dot rotation, and don't forget your semicolon. Okay, so now this should sort of work. Let's go try it out. Down here. And oh, forgot to add the script. Let's go to the rocket launcher, go scripts, and add launch grenade, or launch, yeah. And it should work now. And again, I forgot. It's late here, 2:30 AM. We have to actually give it our grenade prefab. So go into your prefab folder and add the rocket. or grenade. I'm using rocket and grenade interchangeably in this video. And now you can see it's spawning the it's actually spawning the grenades, but they're not actually moving. So let's go do that. So to make them move, we're gonna first have to set this to a game object. We could call this grenade is equal to, and we need to tell it what it is. So game object. So I'm saying game object grenade. So grenade is equal to whatever's happening here. And then we're gonna do grenade dot get component of type rigid body. We have to add brackets at down, and we're gonna do add force and minus, or yeah, my transform. Dot up. Guessing this, we're gonna run into a problem here that we'll fix after. And dot propulsion. Okay, I have to set up a. Go back up here, and we're gonna do public float propulsion force, and then we're gonna multiply this by propulsion force, and then our force mode is gonna be equal to impulse because we want it to be a sudden. You know, we're launching a missile, we want it to be quick and sudden. I'm not sure what happened here. Times propulsion force. So if we go over our add force here, we can see our parameters that we need. So we need a vector degree force and our force mode. So that's what we've set up here. So we're taking the grenade. What's happening in here? I was saying get component of type rigid body, and then we're adding the force and specifying the force type. And then we're gonna want to destroy grenades, so destroy the game object after 3 seconds, because you don't want to just end up with hundreds of prefabs in a scene. So I think that should be good. We could head back into Unity, see how that works. Don't forget here, set your propulsion force to whatever. Let's try 30. And it's not working. Okay, I know why. So we need to go to your prefab and make sure it has a rigid body, and also make sure it has a box collider. We're gonna need the box collider later. Let's try now. And there we go. Now we see we're having a little problem where our rocks are shooting in the wrong direction. Now this could vary if you're using different models. So since ours, if I go back, you can see it shooting backwards. So that means we just have to do the opposite here. And so it's gonna be negative my transform dot up. And let's see how this works. Yeah, now you can see they're shooting forward, but no explosions yet. And for you guys, unless you're using this model too, you're probably gonna have to do my transform dot forward. And if it's going backwards, take off to a negative. But for me, my transform dot up. So now that's done, we could start working on the grenade explosion script. So head into your scripts folder, create C# script, and we'll call this grenade explosion. Open that up in Visual Studio. Again, I'll take this out. And okay, now that I have this script set up properly, we're gonna need a few variables. We're gonna need a public float blast radius, and then public float explosion force. I don't know what's wrong with my typing today. And that should be good for now. Now I'm gonna need to set up a new void And make sure you spell this exact like I'm going to do it, because it is a Unity method, so it has to be exact. On collision, enter, and then it's going to auto-complete it. And I'll just change this to call instead of collision, make it a little shorter. And then in here we'll do debug.log, and we'll do collision.contacts. Though I'll explain this in a second. 0.point.toString and brackets. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking a look, doing void on collision. So I'm doing a void on collision, enter, collision call, so that's our collision, that's what we're actually colliding with. And then debug.log prints it to the console in Unity. And then I'm doing .context, that's all the objects that hits, zeros being the first one in that list. And .point, so we're extracting the point information, and then .toString just makes it work in the console. So now just to make sure everything's working right, we'll head back into Unity. And let's not forget to actually add the script to our grenade prefab. So head over to project, go to your prefabs folder, go to our rocket, and then lock it. Go back to our scripts folder and take our grenade explosion and add it. Oh. No? Okay, right. There we go. Let's try 10 for our blast radius and 200 for our explosion force. This isn't really important right now. And then we could run it. Now we should see. There we go. So you see in our console down here. So we are in fact colliding with the ground. Just want to make sure that worked. And now we can move on to actually adding the explosion. So we're going to need a new void. I'll call this void do explosion. And then probably going to do this on our collision enter. We're going to have to set up our do explosion. And then we also have to pass in the same all contacts 0.point. So the object we're colliding with, we're looking at the list of it in this array and in the point. Okay, now it's giving us an error. I'll take a look at that after. So we're gonna have to start by doing hit colliders. So the colliders we hit is equal to physics dot overlap sphere. Now an overlap sphere is kind of like a raycast, but in a sphere. So that's how I could explain it. And then we're gonna need some parameters for that. So I'm gonna do explosion force, blast radius, and that should be good for now. Oops. Okay. Oh, I know what I'm doing wrong. I forgot to add parameters up here. So we need to have our vector free explosion point. There we go. So vector free explosion point, that's where our actual explosion is taking place. And now let's fix this problem over here. I'm gonna do for each brackets collider hit call and hit colliders. Why am I getting a problem on hit colliders? Okay, here we go. So don't forget to go up here, and actually I like to have my private ones after. Private collider, and then it's going to be an array. It's going to store everything that we hit, and there's multiple of them. Colliders. There we go. So setting colliders equal to fixed.overlap sphere and whatever's in there. And now we're going to go down here and we're going to do for each. I'm going to do collider hit call, and it's in hit colliders. And go down here First off, I'm gonna test this with a devlog.log like before. So devlog.log hit call, it's shorter. Dot game object dot name and debug.log here. So what we're doing here is we're checking, we're creating an overlap sphere, and whatever is in that sphere is going to be put into the array hit call. And here we're going to do debug.log, and we're just going to publish to the console the game object.name of what we hit. So another thing I want to do is go into Unity and go create the object cube and make sure it has a rigid body, because else it won't be affected by the physics of our grenade. I'll just reset the transform on that, bring it up, put it over here, and then I'll just make a few copies of it. I'll just make one copy, bring it up, grab those two, another copy, grab those two, make another copy, and then create empty wall. They're just going to be just for testing purposes. Run onto the wall, grow the wall in our map folder. And now let's see if this works. So if, let's see, we could shoot down there. If we go console, we can see we didn't, even though we only hit that one cue at the bottom, that overlap sphere is growing and hitting all of these over here. So I could even hit the floor and still hit other cubes. So that works fine. So now let's comment out our debug.logs. Debug.log. That one, and no. Here. Okay, I'm really tired. My brain is not working very well tonight. So next we're gonna do hit call dot get component of type rigid body, and now we're gonna do is kinematic is equal to false. Just make sure that's equal to false for things to work right. Hit call is kinematic, by the way, is if I go to this little checkbox, just make sure it's false. I'm gonna do hit call dot get component type rigid body. Again, so we're accessing the rigid body component, which is what Unity uses to manage all its physics. And now we're gonna do dot add explosion force, and we need a few parameters. You can see them over here. I'm gonna do explosion force, explosion point, explosion point, blast radius 1, and force mode dot. We want this to be an impulse because we want it to be sudden. Good. And this one here is our float upwards lift modifier. I don't know if you guys see that. So without this, we'd basically just be shooting out horizontally, mostly. But with this, it's going to throw out our objects up into the sky. So you can modify this to however much you want things to get thrown up. And we don't need our voids and show references for the script. So save that. And I think that's it. First off, let's go to our prefab, our rocket, and here we go, grenade explosion 10, 200, that should work. And now if we go to our rocket launcher, 30, and we have the prefab set to rocket. So let's try it out. Okay. Right, so it's, since there's no rigid body, of course it's not working. Now, okay, we have a problem. Okay, now, it took me way longer than I should have, but I finally found out, figured out what the problem was with the script. So what you're gonna need to do is go down here, add if statement, and say hit call dot get component rigid body, and put in your brackets and not equal to null. Go down, put your brackets, Copy this from before, put it in there. So what we were forgetting to do before is this if statement, which checks if hit call, so the objects that we're hitting. Then we're checking if they have the component rigid body, and if it's not equal to null, so it's not equal to 0, then we could go on and do this. So with that done, we'll save it, and it should work. Continuity, and there you go. Beautiful. Yeah. So if you guys want to mess around with the values for this, I changed this to 0.2f because they were shooting up way into space. You could play around with it. You could change your explosion force. I put it down to 50. Set to whatever you want. One last thing before I end this video is unless you're trying to make TF2 and you want rocket jumping, you probably don't want the rockets to be able to affect the player. So you're gonna need to go to your FPS controller, go layers, add layer. I know I've already done it, just add a player layer, and go player and no this objects only. And we're gonna have to make a little editor script too. I'm gonna go public layer mask, and then explosion layers. And then over here we're gonna have to add an extra parameter saying explosion layers. So now we're just saying that we could only what happens down here could only affect things on the explosion layer. And now go to your rocket prefab, and here we go. Explosion layers, check everything, and then uncheck player. Let's go ahead and test this. You can see rockets now don't do anything to me. So if you guys enjoyed this video, it was my first YouTube tutorial, and it's late at night, so I hope it wasn't too bad. I know I'm not making this anymore, but if you enjoyed it, be sure to hit like, subscribe. If you guys have any problems or questions, leave it in the comments. I'll try to help you guys out. And if you guys want to learn how to actually make this rocket launcher, again, hit subscribe, because that's going to be our next video. I'm going to go try to make this in Blender. Peace.